The sea forgets nothing. Chapter 1. The quiet before the leaving. The harbor was too quiet that morning. Even the gulls had lost their voices, gliding low over the gray water like memories that wouldn't rest. He told her he was leaving in the morning, and she nodded as if it were weather. The wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't move. Somewhere behind them, a bell struck 8, and he thought how strange it was that the world could sound so calm when everything in it was breaking. She turned her face toward the water. "Do you really have to go?" He didn't answer right away. He was watching a tugboat make its slow way out of the channel, smoke trailing behind it in a thin, crooked line. The smell of diesel drifted toward them, sharp and clean. "You know I do." "That's not the same as wanting to," she said. He looked at her then. The way her hands were folded inside his coat sleeves, the faint tremor in her jaw. She wasn't crying. She never did when it mattered. It was one of the things he had loved about her, and now it felt like cruelty. "I've stayed longer than I meant to," he said. "That sounds like an apology," she said. "It is one." She smiled faintly. "You were always better at apologies than promises." The tide was coming in, slow and relentless. Small waves licked at the lower boards of the pier, and the wood answered with a hollow, tired sound. He thought of the first time they'd met. The same harbor, different season. Her hair still dark then, his hands still sure. The war had just ended, and the world had seemed wide enough for both of them. Now it was smaller. Everything was. "You could stay," she said. "No one's forcing you. I'd end up hating it here. You already hate it everywhere else." He laughed softly, the kind of laugh that dies before it reaches the throat. "You think too much," he said. "You don't think enough." They stood in silence after that. A boat horn called somewhere in the fog, low, drawn out, mournful. She pulled the coat tighter around her shoulders. "I never asked where you're going," she said finally. "No," he said. "You didn't." "Then tell me now." "South," he said. "Maybe Cuba. Maybe farther." "Running again." "Leaving," he corrected. "There's a difference." She gave him a long look, and for a moment he thought she might touch him, the way she used to, with both hands, as if she could steady him by force of will alone. But she only brushed a strand of hair from her face. "The difference," she said, "is what you're afraid of naming." He didn't argue. The truth was she was right. He wasn't running from her. He was running from the quiet that came after her voice, from the way she made him feel known. There were men who fought wars because peace frightened them. He was one of them. A gull cried suddenly, one sharp, startled note, and the sound broke the stillness like glass. She looked out toward the horizon. The tide's turning. It always does. But it never brings back what it takes. He wanted to tell her that wasn't true. That tide's brought things back all the time. Shells, bottles, bits of wreckage. But he knew what she meant. The things that mattered never returned in one piece. The sky had begun to clear. A sliver of sun pushed through the clouds and spread across the water like spilled gold. He thought it looked almost merciful. She said, "You'll write?" "I don't know." "You won't." "Maybe not." "Then at least remember." "I remember too much already." Her eyes softened then, though her voice didn't. "That's what makes it love," she said. "You remember what you wish you could forget." He didn't trust himself to speak, so he nodded instead. The ferry engine coughed to life behind them. Smoke rose, steady and white against the clearing sky. The deckhands were shouting to each other, ropes slapping against the pilings. She took a step back, and he felt the space open between them like something physical, something with weight. "When does it leave?" she asked. "In 10 minutes. Then we have 9 too many." He smiled. "That's not how time works." "It is when you love someone," she said. "Every minute's a wound." He wanted to laugh, to say something easy that would make it less heavy. But there was no easy left. Not for them. She held his gaze for a moment longer, then turned away first. The wind carried her scent, sea and rain and something faintly floral, and he wanted to hold on to it, bottle it like a memory that wouldn't fade. He watched her walk down the pier until she disappeared into the fog that had begun to roll back in from the open water. The sound of her footsteps faded, then vanished. He lit a cigarette he didn't want and watched the smoke twist in the cold air. The ferry horn sounded once, deep and final. He thought of calling out her name. Just once, the way he used to, but he didn't. The gulls had started crying again, and somehow that seemed answer enough. He flicked the cigarette into the water and turned toward the waiting boat. The harbor was no longer quiet. It was awake, alive, and merciless. And he knew, as he stepped aboard, that the silence would follow him anyway. Chapter 2. The South was always honest. The sea changed color as he sailed south. First gray, then green, then something close to blue. The kind of blue that looked borrowed, like it didn't belong to any one place. The days were hot, the nights hotter, and the air stuck to him as if it were trying to make him remember where he came from. He slept little. When he did, he dreamed of the harbor, not of her, exactly, but of sound. The bell, the gulls, the ferry horn fading into fog. He'd wake up with the taste of salt in his mouth and the strange conviction that he'd forgotten something vital. When they reached Havana, the air was alive. Music came from open windows. Laughter drifted down from balconies where women leaned out to gossip. The city had that look of exhaustion and courage, everything cracked but still shining. He rented a room above a cantina near the harbor. The owner, a woman with strong arms and silver hair tied in a knot, called him El Extranjero, the stranger. She didn't ask where he was from. In that city, everyone was from somewhere else. At night, he drank rum with the dock workers, men with hands that looked like they had built the world and then been punished for it. They talked about storms, women, and the price of fish. He listened more than he spoke. Listening was safer. One evening, after the rain had passed, he was sitting at a corner table when she walked in. Not her, not the woman from the harbor, but someone with the same way of entering a room, as if she owned the silence before the music started again. She wore a white dress that clung to her shoulders, her skin tanned and clean. Her hair was wet, and she didn't seem to care. She ordered a drink, took one sip, and turned her head just enough for him to see her smile. It wasn't a smile meant for anyone. It just happened to exist in his direction. He told himself not to look again, but he did. When she caught his gaze, she came over without hesitation. She sat across from him and placed her drink on the table like an offering. "You don't look like you belong here," she said. "No one does," he said. "Then we're both safe." He smiled. "Safe isn't the word I'd use." "What word would you use?" "Temporary." She studied him for a moment. "That's a good word. Honest, at least." They drank in silence for a while. The music was soft, guitar, low and wandering. He could feel the rhythm in the table beneath his hand. "I'm Elena," she said. "Daniel." "Where are you from, Daniel?" "North," he said. "Everything north of here is north," she said. "You'll have to do better." He shrugged. "Too far to matter." She laughed. "That's the kind of thing men say when they've lost something." "Maybe," he said, "or when they've finally left it behind." "No one leaves anything behind," she said. "We just carry it differently." He looked at her closely then. The curve of her collarbone, the calm in her eyes. She didn't look like a woman chasing anything. She looked like someone who had already caught it and let it go. "Are you always this sure of things?" he asked. "No," she said. "Only when I drink." Later, when the cantina began to empty, she stood and leaned close enough for him to smell rain and rum on her breath. "Walk me home," she asked. The streets glistened under the street lamps. They walked side by side, not speaking. Somewhere a trumpet was playing, slow and sweet. It followed them down the narrow road. At her door, she turned to him. "You're running from something," she said. "Everyone is." "Yes, but you're honest about it." He didn't know what to say, so he kissed her. It wasn't the kind of kiss meant to start anything. It was the kind meant to forget. She kissed him back like she understood. When they broke apart, she said quietly, "You can come in, if you want. Or you can keep walking." "What happens if I walk?" "You'll dream about it anyway," she said. "Might as well make it real." He followed her inside. The room smelled of salt and candle smoke. The windows were open, the curtains breathing with the wind. She unbuttoned her dress without looking at him, and he thought for a moment of the harbor, the cold light, the bell that struck 8. Then he stopped thinking. Afterward, she lay beside him, one arm across her eyes. "You look like a man who still owes someone a goodbye," she said. "I said it already," he said. Not out loud. "You didn't." He didn't answer. Outside, the city moved in waves. Laughter, engines, the far-off crash of the sea. She turned toward him, eyes half closed. "You can stay," she said. "But don't make it mean something." He nodded. "It never does." But he knew that was a lie. He fell asleep to the sound of the ocean against the pier. In the dream that came, the harbor was quiet again, and she was standing on the dock with his coat around her shoulders. Only this time, she wasn't watching him leave. She was waiting. He woke before dawn. The bed beside him was empty, but her scent lingered, sea and smoke and something sweet, he couldn't name. He went to the window. The horizon was red. It would be another hot day, he thought, and it would be harder to leave the next time. Chapter 3. The Sea Forgets Nothing. He woke with the first heat of morning pressing through the shutters. The air in the room was heavy, and the sheets smelled faintly of salt and rum. Elena was gone. For a moment he lay still, staring at the ceiling. It was cracked in a way that looked deliberate, like someone had once tried to write something there and given up halfway. Outside, a rooster crowed. Somewhere farther off, a woman laughed, the low, easy laugh of someone who had slept well. He sat up, poured what was left of the water in the basin over his face, and watched the drops fall into the dust. Then he dressed, buttoning his shirt slowly, as if it mattered how he did it. On the small table by the bed was a folded note. He didn't open it right away. He lit a cigarette first, drew the smoke deep, and let it settle in him. Then he read, "I went to the harbor. You'll find me there, if you're still the kind of man who looks back." He smiled, not with his mouth, but somewhere inside. The kind of smile that came when you realized the day would be harder than you wanted it to be. The streets were already alive when he stepped out. Vendors shouting, children chasing one another, the scent of fried bread and coffee hanging in the heat. The city had a rhythm of its own, and he moved through it like someone slightly off the beat. When he reached the harbor, she was sitting on a stone wall, a straw hat in her lap, bare feet dusted white with salt. She didn't look at him when he approached. "You smoke too much," she said. "You leave too early." "Maybe that's why we found each other," she said. He handed her a cigarette anyway. She took it, though she didn't light it. For a while they sat like that, watching a freighter crawl toward the horizon. "Do you know what I do?" she asked. "I figured you don't tell many people." "I sing," she said, "at the cantina on the hill." "You don't look like someone who sings for strangers." "I don't," she said. "I sing for ghosts." He looked at her. She didn't seem to be joking. "They pay better?" he asked. "They listen better," she said. "And they never interrupt." He smiled at that, but it faded quickly. "Everyone here has ghosts." "Yes," she said, "but not everyone talks to them." She turned then and looked at him straight. "Your ghost has a name, doesn't it?" He didn't answer. She reached into her bag and pulled something out, a small silver locket, its hinge slightly bent, the chain broken. She placed it in his hand. "I found it at the bar last night," she said. "Under your chair." He felt his chest tighten. He hadn't seen the locket in months, hadn't realized it was still with him. Inside it was a photograph, a woman on a pier, wind tearing at her hair. "You know her," he said quietly. Elena looked out toward the sea. "Not in the way you did." "But yes, everyone in Havana knows her name." He said nothing. He could hear the waves breaking, slow and deliberate. "She used to sing here," Elena said. "Years ago, before the war, before everything changed." He looked at her. "You're lying." "No," she said. "I'm telling you what's left of the truth." He turned the locket over in his hand. The hinge creaked. "What was her name here?" "Lucia," she said. "That's not her name." "It was, once," she said. "Names are like tides. They come and go." The sun had climbed higher now. The air shimmered over the water. He said, "How did you know?" "I didn't," she said. "Not until you said north. Not until you looked at me like you'd seen me before." He wanted to leave then, to walk away before the past caught up with him again. But he didn't move. "She told me about you," Elena said. Before she disappeared. The words hit him harder than he expected. "She's here." "She was," Elena said. "Not anymore." He stood, heart thudding. "Where?" Elena's eyes met his. "That's what I've been trying to find out." They stood there a moment longer, neither speaking. The sea licked the stones below them, patient as time. Finally, Elena said, "Come tonight. To the cantina. I'll tell you what I know." He nodded, though his voice felt far away when he said, "All right." As he turned to go, she called after him, "Daniel." He stopped. "Whatever you're looking for," she said, "it doesn't live where you left it." He didn't answer. The harbor shimmered behind him, the sunlight hitting the water like broken glass. Somewhere deep inside, he felt that familiar pull, the one that had made him leave before. Only this time, it didn't feel like running. It felt like returning to something that had been waiting all along.